Okay, so we were at so now we are at their house, and we have kind of giving you some tools that you should have when you go to their house and how to present it. And I think I will seriously uh, tell you that please remember that your excitement should not be just today and this week. Keep this momentum and have this belief that these tools are helpful, because I know it will make a difference. It will make a difference between you going to a listing with or without a presentation package. It will make a difference, no doubt. Even if you're listing your cousin's home, it will make a difference. They will look at you differently if you have prepared this stage. So do it. I think don't be lazy. When you start now, you have a lot of time in your hands. So maybe you can work on preparing those packages, your profile. And once you do it once, you don't have to do it every time. It's just a one-time investment of your time. There is not much of money. I mean, those folders that I showed you from Business Depot, it probably is 10, 20 bucks, not a lot. And then you print a few pages and insert it. But yes, it might take you a whole week or maybe a whole month to a good job, a good presentation, prepare it and work on it. It depends on your schedule. But once you do it, then it is just for one time. Okay, so far what we have discussed is that if the presentation goes smoothly and they sign on the paper and you're out within 20 minutes, that's ideal. But ideally, I mean, things do not happen ideally all the time. So they might have objections. The most common objection that I have come across is that let's list my property higher. That is the biggest thing that everybody wants. That if you go with an X price, they will say let's list it at Y price, higher price. This video is kind of targeting those kind of that objection and those kind of sellers, that why it is not a good idea to list higher. See if you can get a couple of points from here that might help you in your presentation when you go for a presentation, and you can convince them that it is not a good idea all the time to list your property for higher.
Should I
Oh, okay. So it's not a good idea to list higher uh, because I think of this chart that you should have it as part of your presentation. By the way, I think somewhere in my presentation I say if it is too low, people will not look at it. These videos are prepared for a general, normal, regular market. If market is hot, for example, in downtown Toronto, some houses are listed at X amount and then they are sold 160,000 more than asking price. It is a game that they play. So I'm not talking about those kind of games. We are talking about a normal market that is not too hot, not too bad. If you list it too low, the perception of regular people will say there must be something wrong with this house that is listed too low. So you don't want it to list it too low. Of course, if it is a little bit low, it is okay because you're motivated, because maybe you lost your job or your divorce or whatever the case might be. So it might be a little bit low so that you can sell faster. That's not a problem, but it should not be too low. Of course, too high is a problem, and this chart is part of that presentation. Basically, it says if you list it at market value, you will have 60% of potential buyers coming to your door. Okay? If you go higher, like let's say 10%, which is not much, so instead of listing at 500, you will list at 550, you will lose half of those potential buyers. That's a lot of people. And you know, it is most or some listings that we see, they are 10% higher than the market value. And this, you know, the seller says, let's list it higher and then we will negotiate later. But unfortunately, that's not to their benefit. You should have this chart all the time in your presentation because people will bring up the price. They will say, let's list it higher. This is a stat taken. Let's look at these stats and let's see what the numbers say. Of course, if you list it lower, as this chart says, you will get a lot of curious people walking in, but these curious people will also have another question, that why it is so low. Okay?
But then, if, for example, the seller is selling because of personal reasons,
yeah,
we cannot disclose it to the potential buyer.
Yeah.
Right? Because
you have to protect. Yeah.
You have to protect that, right? So what? How do you tell if it's a beautiful house, everything is good? So the client might ask, why is it selling it so low?
Yeah, I think that chart showed 15% higher and 15% lower. I'm assuming if it is between 5 to 10%, it will attract like 90% of the buyers. So it's still good enough. When I say too low, instead of 500, if you're listing it at 400,
yeah,
I don't think it's protecting anyone's interest. If people are motivated and want to sell, so instead of 500, you may list 450 or 470, but not 400. Right? Okay. Now this is another chart, very interesting, and you should always also have this related to the same topic, is that if you see the first month, the first 4 weeks is the peak of activity. That means agents are curious, buyers are curious, they want to look at this listing, just came in the market. Now after a month, you see it flattens. So let's say if you have 10 people showing every day during this time it might be only 10 people in a week or a month. Big difference. So if you lose this opportunity, it never comes back. Another big mistake that sellers make by listing it too high. So the first 2 weeks are the most important timing. And I think another thing that happens is on the same street, if exact same house or similar house, not exact, but similar houses listed at lower price, people will go and offer that. So you're helping your neighbor to sell their house, because if they say, oh, this is price high, so let me go with this one. You might, in your mind, even sell lower than him, but because you have listed high, people do not dare to come to you. They say, oh, I might insult him with my offer, or they can't read your mind that you're willing to sell lower. So that's why it is in everyone's best interest to list it at the market value.
How about those listings that come up with offer will be presented to seller on an X date? That means it's going to be like multiple bidding, right?
Yeah. Well, first of all, rules are saying that you're not supposed to do that. Once you list at your first opportunity, you should you should present the offer that are coming to you. Although I'm sure you have seen a lot of MLS listings that say, come next week on such and such time and we will present the offer. Yeah, so some people have problems with that. When you list a property within a reasonable time, you should present, unless there is a reason, for example, the client is in hospital or out of country or things like that. But within a reasonable time, you're supposed to present. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't follow that rule.
But let's say the property came up on the market on Monday, and in the notes over there it says that all offers will be presented to seller on Friday at 8 o'clock in the evening.
Yes.
Is that acceptable?
You have to have a valid reason. So, for example, your client might be working full time and he is not available during that whole week.
Right.
Yeah. But I think if it is too long, you could get into trouble.
I think what it is that it's not presented, it will be reviewed or responded, because you have to present it right away
Right.
or forward it or let them know, but you don't have to respond. This is an option of the vendor, right? They just don't want to. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
But I think it's still, this is a gray area. Some
Yeah,
people get
yeah.
into trouble when it's not, I have not seen a clear ruling, otherwise these things would have not been there on MLS. Still it exists, but in the
Yeah.
book I know it is not allowed. You're not supposed to do it. You should, within a reasonable timing, you're supposed to go and present it to your client.
Right. Unless the client has insisted, I only want to see offers on the particular
Yeah, yeah, but it should not come from you.
day. Yeah, no.
If a
no.
client has a valid reason, that's a
Right.
different issue.
Right.
As I said, they're out of town and coming back, or hospital or whatever.
Whatever, right.
Yeah,
So like you said, it's a gray area.
yeah, it's gray area. Yeah. Okay, so this is and again, remember before the break we were discussing things that are going smoothly. Now we are handling things that are an added issue. So one of the added issue was higher price that they want. Another added issue is that you're in the property and you notice that there is a tenant. How to handle this issue when you have a tenant in the house is a topic that I interviewed the lawyer. Although a couple of days ago, if you guys remember, I have interviewed the same lawyer about buying a tenanted property.
Right.
Now you're on the other side of the coin, you're representing the seller, so you want to know how to protect your and your client's best interest and work within the legal framework with the tenant so that you're not breaking any rules, or your client is not breaking any rules.
Hello and welcome to Real Estate in Focus. When you're selling a property that has tenant, whether this tenant is living in your basement or it is a large apartment building in a residential property with a lot of tenants, there are certain considerations
Okay, any questions on that? It's a little bit of a cumbersome issue to handle. Tenants are protected a lot in this province, and there are rules and regulations. If you have any question, Google landlord and tenant board. There are people available on the phone that will advise you for free. They don't charge, so you can call and ask questions. If you have any questions, they are the best people. They know better than even some lawyers, because there are only a few lawyers who are specialized just in residential rental, so it will be hard to find them. It's better to call the board directly if you have any questions, so that you're playing with the book. Basically, you're working with people and they're living there. If they promise that they will leave, they may not leave on the closing date. So your client, your commission, the buyer, everybody will be in trouble. It is better to prepare ahead of time, although this is not your job. Your job is to list and sell the property. But I mean, there are so many things that are not our job, but we just want to connect the things together so that we can get our paycheck. Do you know what I'm saying? So you understand, and hopefully your client understands that this is not your job to handle, but you're helping them. And this will go a long way for your own interest. Okay, so, and again, we are still at the house. These are some of the problems. I don't want to make it a big deal, but I'm just trying to prepare you for any scenario. Let me tell you something. If a property is not in good condition, especially with people having lots of kids, they have done all drawings on the walls, and they have done lots of crappy things on the carpet, even if that property is in a hot location, good price, sometimes it is difficult to sell. Because the buyer walking in, they don't like the smell, they don't like the walls that are not painted, at least something basic and properly. I think doing some cosmetic renovation, and these renovations sometimes could only cost the seller few hundred to a few thousand, but it is worth it because it will make the property more sellable. It is very important, and I have interviewed someone on the importance of that, and I think these videos are again played and prepared for you so that you can watch and maybe get some ideas, so that when you go for the listing presentation, you say, you know what, before I put your house in the market, because you might put the house in the market and it will not sell. You walk into a house that has a bad smell or something like that, it will not sell. So you will waste your time and their time. It's better to do this before you sell the house. You guys understand that? Or should I replay it?
First,
okay.
one thing that's important to realize that as soon as a potential customer or buyer comes up to your home, you need to make a good first impression. Something as simple as painting your front door and changing the door handle go a long way to making the person feel that the home has been updated. Once they step inside, one of the main things is that your home is fresh, clean, and presents itself well with a nice paint job. If you have the budget and are so inclined, the main things that sell houses are kitchens and washrooms. These things can be simple changes like ensuring that the faucets don't leak, potentially changing the faucet, changing the knobs in your cabinets. Cabinets are worn, they get used a lot. You can reface your kitchen cabinets, or if you want to save a few dollars, you can make your cabinets look new with new paint or just another coat of varnish. And the same thing carries into your washroom, making sure that the faucets don't leak, that the toilet doesn't leak, that everything is clean. You can change
it's my mic. Okay, so you guys understand the importance of cosmetic renovations, and it could be as simple as changing door handles, and it could be only a few bucks, but it makes a big difference. Trust me, most of the time, once the buyer comes out of their car, they make a decision sometimes just from the outside of the house. If the garage door is chipped, or the front door is chipped, or the painting looks crappy, they will just say, I don't want this house. Then they might say, okay, let's walk in. They will walk in, but they have already decided in the brain that they will not buy this house. So that's why those cosmetic renovations are important. And just following those cosmetic renovations, I think, so I don't want to go through this whole presentation because the time is almost up. These are some of the other scripts that is part of this presentation, and I also have a list of 40 real estate objections that you can look at, and it is basically going through all the objections that your client might come up with, right? So going through all those challenges, now you're going to list the property. You know how the listing presentation works, and then this MLS data form works. If it's a exclusive listing, you may not need the MLS data form because you're not listing it on Trip. You know, it's your own listing, so you just need the agreement, the listing agreement that the seller wants to work with you. There is a list. This is something that I have prepared, and you can print this and customize it. Basically, it lists things that, and I think it leaves a good impression. Once you list the property, you will give them this list that is already prepared for you, that what they should do to prepare the house for the buyers or potential buyers coming in. Very important. I think it's not a good idea that people walk into houses and it smells bad, or it doesn't smell good, things like that. So those are all good points that is written there. I think this presentation should be longer for 2 hours because so this is another video. I have interviewed a staging person, which gives some tips about the importance of staging, but unfortunately I cannot play this because we have 5 minutes, and I want to do come with another video that I think is important, which is this one. Once you list the property, this video, and which we will end our session today, will give you an idea that what are the other steps that you need to take to sell the property, and also maybe even generate some leads through this property, right? So we will play this, and then we will end the session today. If you want to have access to the other material that I have not covered, this presentation could be available for you. I think the only thing that I missed is staging, but staging, you guys understand, is important, and there are people that come and charge for the staging.
Hello, welcome to Real Estate in Focus. For realtors, listing is the bloodline of their business. Once we have established this, it is also important to understand that you can grow your business through listings. Number one,
Okay, any questions?
Do you take, I mean, like you said, take pictures, and a lot of them have virtual tours as well. I've seen some that it's basically done by the real estate agent themselves, and some's taken professionally.
I think it is worth it to take professionally because they have a special camera. I think it's called panoramic camera. That it
Yeah.
has a panoramic view. It makes the size of the homes look bigger, brighter, and you need the traffic to come in. I mean, the pictures may not have an accurate representation of the space, but still, it is a better idea. If they charge you about $100 with taxes, probably it comes to 115 or whatever it is. I think it is worth it. They are professional and they have a special equipment. So those are the two things that we as real estate agents don't have. Expensive equipment. Their cameras are probably in thousands, which we cannot have or cannot afford unless we are a photographer. The second thing that sometimes you have to be trained in what angle to take and things like that. So it's worth it to call up. And as it was mentioned, if you have good photographs, you will attract to 3 times more potential buyers coming to the house. So especially in today's agent time, pictures make a huge difference.
And the virtual tours.
Yeah. Because people look at the pictures and agents don't have that much time. If you don't have pictures, they will say if they have other options, they would rather go with those ones because they don't want to be embarrassed in front of their clients. When a real estate agent takes a client to a house and it is in bad shape, that will reflect upon the agent, unfortunately. It's not his fault, but the buyer thinks that he should have known this before bringing me here. If there is a bad smell, bad carpet, bad paint or whatever. So it reflects on the buyer's agent and seller's agent, both of them. So that's why people want to be more careful before going out. If you show crappy houses day after day to a client, to your buyer, they will say this guy doesn't know what he's doing. Although it is not your fault, you just saw it on the listing and you went to show it, but that's why you say this guy is not prepared. Okay, so that will end today's presentation. The only thing that I missed, we didn't get the time, is probably we started, although these are prepared for 2 hours, we have started maybe 5-10 minutes late, and I missed the staging. But I think you guys understand what is staging, and you pay someone and they go out there. Having said that, I think tomorrow's, although I said today is crucial, yes, today's list, as you can see, the information was helpful, and I think you can use it in real life. Tomorrow is something that probably you have not heard most of the content before. It is about investment, which you could use for your own personal or your friends, but it's also about commercial listings and commercial transactions. So it is something that for sure you will need in your career time, but it is something that most probably you have not heard most of the things. Like just sold and just listed, things like this you have seen and experienced before, but commercial content I think is something that probably I'm assuming you have not heard before. So it is better to attend and get to know those basics. So see you guys tomorrow.